Can you say friends, talking, nerdy? Close enough.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends talking nerdy.
Recorded in front of a live studio audience, it's Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd, and seated next to me, bedecked in a Cyndi Lauper t-shirt, we have Professor Aubrey. And this week, we are going to be doing what we do best, giving relationship advice to other people. Because we're the total experts on it.
We absolutely are.
Yes, but this time, instead of just standard relationship advice, we're going to be taking kind of a different bent on it. We're going to be discussing polyamory relationship advice.
That's right. We have gone to Reddit, to the Reddit Polyamory Reddit, and
The subreddit, as they call it.
the subreddit, yes.
Yeah.
Polyamory subreddit.
How could you not know that? Oh my God.
I knew it, I just forgot it. Like so many things. Anyway, yeah, so we just went there and we perused and we looked for some interesting questions that were posed or stories, etc. And we're going to bring those to you, our listeners.
Indeed, because polyamory is a lot like monogamy in a lot of ways, but it's also not, because you are dealing with multiple people in different ways, I guess. That's added emotions you have to take into account for actions that you make. So in a lot of ways, it can be harder. But I say can in the way I did because, ideally you want to have communication going through. You want to, have proper scheduling, for stuff that you want to do. And, just also understand that, if life happens and, something has to change, like if you have booked with some, person A and you can't do something with person B, then you want to be able to make it up to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's a lot. It's not all sunshine, roses, and butt stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it's not that different from other relationships. It's just that you have more of them.
because obviously if you are involved in in a romantic relationship with somebody, there's going to be more intense feelings than you would have for like a workmate, let's say.
Sure. Of course. Let's assume that's true, yes.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. I don't know anybody that would, oh my God, Maggie at work, she's super cool.
I need her in my life, man.
I know.
She makes it all worthwhile.
Shout out to Maggie. Anyway.
All right, Mags.
I don't know Maggie. Anyway, so what we are going to do is read the stories in question that we found interesting and then talk about our thoughts on that particular topic because, again, like polyamory, it's something that's been around for a long time, but I think it's the open discussion of polyamory and all the ins and outs of polyamorous relationships is something that is on the mainstream kind of just starting, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I really think it's probably the proliferation of the internet that has made that possible. Because certainly, I remember in the BBS days, where you would dial in to a bulletin board service and just post things, respond to people, send people messages. Like that was the extent of the internet in my experience, right? So anyway, as soon as that happened, like this became a topic that I became aware of that I never would have been aware of otherwise.
Agreed.
And that was, back in the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, the glory days of the internet. Yeah. GOCs.
GeoCities.
I remember GeoCities. I had my own GeoCities page.
Yeah. Nice.
I believe there is the Wayback Machine has saved that. I should see if it's still around. Like
Mm-hmm.
my GeoCities page.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. The No Talent Me from the mid-90s, this is so deep, man, because it was kind of dedicated to the band Cheap Trick.
Of course it was.
Yeah. What do you mean, of course it was?
You really like Cheap Trick.
Okay. You said it like I proclaim my love for Bob Seger or something.
No. No, not Bob Seger. But,
Yeah.
Anyway. You gotta like what you like.
How about you dive into your first story?
Okay, this is sort of an interesting thing to think about, I guess. And the headline is, do you think of your poly as more of a lifestyle choice or an innate romantic/sexual identity? Obviously, this depends on your personal experience. I'm just looking for anecdotal reports and civil discussion. I know swinging is sometimes referred to as the lifestyle. This TED Talk compares choosing between monogamy or polyamory to choosing between being a vegan or an omnivore. When I reflect on my personal experiences with mononormative culture and my own relationships, I think I was always poly, but I didn't know there was a word for it or didn't realize it was an option. I imagine it's like being gay in the 1950s. There weren't many legal rights or cultural models for being gay, and it was seen by outsiders as a lifestyle choice. So in some ways, once I discovered poly, I did choose it and made an effort to read the books and stuff. But such an effort wouldn't have been necessary if poly was more mainstream. I feel like my polyness is innate. I've encountered people who say someone who has never dated can't really be poly, or someone who's polysaturated with only one partner isn't really poly, even if they're supportive of that one partner seeing other people, or people with zero partners aren't really poly. To me, this is like saying a virgin isn't really straight or gay because they can't know until they try, or like saying someone isn't really bisexual because they've only dated one gender or the other. Comments suggesting someone isn't really bi or isn't really poly seem very invalidating to me, but that may be just because I feel innately poly. On the other hand, I meet a lot of people who are trying out polyamory or who are poly for now, but plan to eventually settle down into something more monogamish. This sounds to me like choosing to give up meat for Lent or challenging oneself to go vegan for a year, but eventually long-term planning to be a flexi vegetarian. This suggests poly is a lifestyle choice for these people. I've also encountered monogamish people who are in mono-poly relationships and just accept their poly partner's polyamory as the price of admission. I don't think these people are poly just because they're part of a polycule, but it's interesting that they're dating a poly person, choosing to date them, but still identify as mono. So what's your experience? Are you poly innately, or is this something you choose to do? Also, although I experience my polyamory innately, I don't want to suggest people who choose polyamory as a lifestyle choice are somehow less poly than I am. I think people can identify however they like, as long as they help define their terms so that people can understand their labels. Okay, so I've heard this debate in numerous places, and I've never heard it between like two actual humans, but I've read about it, certainly a lot on the internet and in some books I've read. So what do you think?
I don't think there is a definitive answer. I think, there are some people that I think, as the person that wrote this mentioned, that, from day one out of the womb, they were just built for a polyamorous type of lifestyle. In terms of being able to have those romantic relationships with whoever they want. But then on the flip side, you also do have people that want to try it out. You know, so it's not. I don't think it's like a binary question, if that makes sense. I think first, if anything, it could just be a spectrum because there could be plenty of people who, at one point felt that they were always there for a poly life, but then ultimately at the end of the day not. But also, as the poster mentioned too, think of how many people identify as gay but have been voluntarily celibate their entire lives, or people that are asexual that support sexual freedom and all that stuff, or things like that. It's like, are there people that are in monogamous relationships that identify as poly but are still in that monogamous relationship and respect that? Of course there are. I know some people, where that is the case. Again, I just don't think there's necessarily a binary answer. I think it kind of is a spectrum because in some ways it is a lifestyle choice, but in some ways, for that to be your lifestyle, it really has to be a part of you.
Yeah. Um,
This is where you disagree with me.
well, I just think you have to be careful because we afford certain rights to same-sex couples these days and rights to people to do what they want to do in their own bedrooms if they're consenting adults. Like we have these values, at least currently, hopefully, the people of this country still have those values. The same kinds of protections are not afforded to polyamorous couples. And I think that's, maybe it's the next leap forward, but maybe that leap forward is going to take a while to get here, given how regressive things are right now.
Yeah, because simple things like a non-primary or non-primary nesting partner does not have the same legal rights as someone who may be married to their primary nesting partner.
Hmm.
And if for whatever reason that primary nesting partner doesn't want the other person involved, guess what? They're not going to be involved in terms of getting kicked out of the hospital room or not being able to do whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So in terms of having those.
There's an innate hierarchy because our society doesn't recognize polyamorous relationships in the same way that they recognize two people of whatever gender getting together. That gets a lot more respect. And as a person who identifies as a queer person, it makes me nervous, right? That we're saying that it's innate when, if that's the case, by the same logic that gay people have rights, polyamorous people should have rights. If it comes down to that, I'm terrified that the rest of the country is going to say, well, yeah, polyamorous people don't have rights. And so, yeah, gay people don't have rights.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, like to your point, in a perfect world, I think consenting adults should be able to marry whoever they want, even if that's multiple people. Having said that, I do understand. If you take stuff like polygamous cults, I do believe that there are people that would be getting involved in marriages and whatnot that aren't doing it exactly, exactly with their will, I guess, if that makes sense. But it's like
I
how
mean, there are coerced marriages, is certainly
in
monogamous.
monogamous relationships as
Yeah.
well, and I get that, and you can't say nobody can have it just because a small group of people would fuck it up for everybody else.
Right. That's like saying that nobody can have sex because some people are rapists.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking of the other stigma too, like with polyamorous people. I mean, some of it is deserved, but people's general idea, just the random public who may not be polyamorous themselves, just think it's these people are just cool with cheating and having sex with as many people as they can. And there are definitely polyamorous couples that do have some impressive numbers, but there are also some that may not, just may have, like a married partner and a boyfriend or girlfriend on the side, or another, or two of them,
Right, or maybe not even. I mean, I think that's one very hierarchical example where you have someone who's married and then they have someone on the side.
Yeah, not the most
The
erudite
other,
way to state that. Let's put it that way.
well, no, that's fine. That's a certain type of relationship structure,
Hmm.
and there are others like two relationships that are co-equal, where there's not this differential in enmeshment, maybe. So like, yeah, maybe I live with one partner, but I, do a lot of other things with the other partner who that I don't do with the partner that I live with. The hope is that it finds its own level, right?
That it balances out, because ideally it's going to be like a puzzle piece, because I think what I have found wonderful about the polyamorous lifestyle is the fact that you can have a relationship with one person and not necessarily have that extra stress of trying to be everything for that person. You can accept the fact that maybe if person A is not the most social person in the world and person B wants to be a little more social, that they can get that from the other person. That's one less thing to have to worry about, that's the way I see it,
And in that way allows everyone to live a more authentic life, right? To
yeah.
to not say, well, I'm not very social, but I'm going to try to make myself social because my partner has a need for that. And I recognize that that's a normal need.
And to be clear, I'm not stating like antisocial people should use polyamory as an excuse to just hang out at home all the time. It's like you do have to put in the effort in relationship as well, and listen when your partner asks you to do a little more effort and stuff like that. Those should be open and honest conversations.
There are just so many more options when you are allowing yourself to form relationships and let them be whatever it is they're going to be,
Yeah.
without limiting those options.
So at the end of the day, I was correct. There is no binary answer here to what the person said. I do think it is kind of on a spectrum
Hmm.
type of deal.
Yeah, I think that that's where I come down to.
Okay. All right. Well, how about I dive in my first story?
I would love to hear it.
They ran an errand, and I can't let it go. That's the name of the post here, and it does have the sublabel vent.
Okay,
So they're venting.
right. They're warning you.
Yes. Help. Flagged as event, but open to advice because I'm ready to burn this polycule to the ground over this. The other day I had to put my dog down. She had cancer and it was time. I've been struggling with the decision for weeks, full of grief and dread and doubt. I've had this dog for more than a decade, my entire adult life, much of that time living alone together. She was my rock, and we have been through a lot together in her senior years. I fucking love this dog. For the last 2 years, Dog and I have lived with my partner, I'll call Hinge, and my meta, all long-term relationships. I told him about my plan to give Dog a gentle passing about 2 weeks in advance and planned it for the late evening so there wouldn't be a rush after work to do our evening routines together. Park, walk, dinner, wind down. Walking the dogs, Hinge also has one in the park in the evening, is a routine that I cherish. Hinge knows this. On the day it was to happen, Hinge stayed home from work, spent some time doing projects and some time with me and Dog. Hinge asked me more than once how I wanted the day to look, and I said I was fine with taking the day easy. And in the evening, I wanted to do our routines: park, walk, cook a special dinner for Dog, prepare for the vet to come. Hinge said word, never mentioned having an errand to do. Evening comes, we all get to the park and are taking our last walk together. We are in the final hours of Dog's life. I am obviously very fucking sad. And then Hinge tells me that he and Meta are actually going to dip out real quick to run an errand that Meta needs Hinge's help with. Now. It'll take 10 minutes, they say. I was fucking stunned. We are on the last walk we are ever going to take. I'm about to lose my best friend. I asked you to be here for this, and you're going to run an errand now? They left and were gone a half hour. And every minute of that time, I just couldn't believe they weren't there. This is supposed to be my chosen family. This is a major life event. These minutes are literally finite. I'd say it activated my fears around reliability, but really it was those fears coming to pass. If you're going to surprise me by dipping out when I'm in the end stage of one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, well, that's exactly the kind of abandonment that other nonsense makes me afraid of. What are we even partners for if you're not going to stay by my side for something like this? They came back after, but the damage is done. This errand was not an emergency. I do not understand why it couldn't have been done earlier in the day or after everything was over or avoided entirely by simply asking me about a workaround for the following day. But I wasn't given a heads up or an explanation. I was simply told I was overreacting because they'd only be gone a short time. I voiced my feelings and was met with defensiveness and incredulity. To me, it being quick is beside the point. The disruption and surprise to being left in a moment like that for something non-essential added so much extra stress to an already awful time. I'm so incredibly hurt by what feels to me like an insane shifting of priorities at one of the few times where I think being inflexible should be understood. I have a hard time asking for help and trusting people to show up. My circle knows this. I get stressed out by adding unaccounted for tasks when we are already pressed for time. They know this too, and IMO, driving somewhere at rush hour where the clock on our time is literally ticking is an unsavory gamble. To think I wouldn't be upset by this is so out of attunement, it's like not knowing me at all. I don't know how to come back from this. I feel betrayed by the very suggestion of leaving to run an errand during this time. I still can't believe they actually left. Why would my meta pull my partner away in a moment like this? Why would my partner go in a moment like this? I can barely look at either of them. I know we need to be able to juggle the needs of multiple people and hold multiple priorities. I know that sometimes means being less available than you want to be. I know many relationship systems struggle with time management and communication, and sometimes things play out in ways that aren't ideal, but come the fuck on. I can deal with these challenges in the regular day-to-day. I can and I do. But am I really so crazy out of line for expecting something different at a time like this? Am I wrong to be pissed? Potentially relevant context. When they left, I wasn't completely alone. My other partner, who is newer and does not live with us, was also there. Newer partner's long distance and hasn't shared the same experience with dog as Hinge or Meta. In my opinion, there is a pattern of disruption to times that my relationship with Hinge will receive priority. For example, Meta initiating difficult conversations that become fights right before Hinge and I are supposed to leave for big trips or overnight dates together. It has sabotaged the quality of our time together enough times for me to wonder if it's a pull for power, whether intentional or subconscious, and it bothers me because I'm careful to give space to other people's time. Regardless, I've talked to Hinge about needing to put a pin in conflicts that are bubbling before our time together as a part of honoring plans with me. It is difficult for me not to perceive a power dynamic at play in the need to prioritize this thing in this moment, and that contributed to my desire just to bow the fuck out. The errand was going to drop off one of our cars in another town so that Meta could drive themselves home after bringing a different vehicle to an inspection appointment there in the morning where they'd have to leave it. I would have gladly given a ride from the inspection had I been asked. In the moment the errand was presented to me as an unavoidable and simply a matter of needing to incorporate some else's needs than mine. That's how they wrote it. There was no effort to do something different. Complicated one here. I think the person in question definitely has some reason to be upset. I think there are some people in the world that don't necessarily value pets in their life like others do. You know, so the person in question, if it's the last day that they're going to have with their dog that's been with them for, throughout most of the dog's life, I mean, it's going to be special to them. So I can understand being upset, somebody bowing out for something that at the end of the day was kind of, inconsequential.
Mm-hmm.
But from the sounds of it, it's like things, relationship stuff like this, when they write it on Reddit, sometimes you got to look for the little crumbs that they leave like near the end. And it does sound like there's a lot more going on than just this. I think this situation did kind of make the person perk up to maybe some of the other problems that are going on with the primary and the meta, and not the new long distance boyfriend or girlfriend, whoever. So it sounds like these people have a lot of talking to do, a lot of soul searching to do, but on the surface, I can agree with the person being upset. It's like you made that plan to be there for the last day of a life that is special to you, and then they dip out for a half hour. I can understand.
I get the sense. I mean, as a knee jerk reaction, I'm like, of course, like break up with those people immediately because that is totally disrespectful of your relationship with your pet, which is can be somebody's primary relationship at certain times in their life. So, um, that's sort of how I feel as a knee jerk. But the more I think about it, it seems to demonstrate that this person isn't good at communicating. And she mentions, or they mentioned several times, they're good at giving people space for time with other people. They understand when other people have to be the priority or get to be the priority. They deal with their own emotional reaction to being put in a secondary position. They don't put that on their partner or their meta. And then when that's not what happens for them, maybe not feeling like in that moment they should have to say, no, I want you to stay here. Because part of it is wanting that other person's instinct to do what you think is the right thing to do in this situation. But if you don't come out and say, I need you to stay here right now, there's really no way for your partner to know that that's what you need.
Yeah, I mean,
Because what she's saying is, well, they knew it was important to me. They knew about my relationship. It doesn't sound like she came out and told them, don't go do this errand.
yeah, and that I agree. I mean, I agree. I mean, that much is definitely true. And if you don't tell someone that something is important and they go off and do the other thing, then at the end of the day, like, you really shouldn't be upset because you didn't take that opportunity to say, I need you here right now. Because if you said that and then they still went, different story altogether.
Sure, and I think the person could that something good could come out of this if the person could go to their partner and say, listen, here's how it happened for me, and here's how I felt about it. And so I'm taking responsibility for the fact that I didn't communicate what my needs were in that moment. And I just want you to know I'm gonna work on doing that much more than I have been.
Yeah, and then also too putting it to the other two people, I hope you can acknowledge that I am upset, because the other people should be made aware of that. To your point, if the information was not properly conveyed to them, if they didn't, if they weren't given a chance to, how do I
Make a different choice.
make a different choice, then things could have ended up differently. Because it's like I said, if she had specifically said, please don't go, and they went anyway, kind of a different story there. So I mean, like I said, I think there's a lot more going on in this particular relationship that they all do need to do some talking about. But it's like I said, I think, the person losing the pet does have some reason to be upset. But, to your point, if that person with the pet had been more communicative to their partners, maybe the situation wouldn't have gone down the way it did.
Right. Right. And I very far from do this correctly. I just want to say that, like, this is a theoretical, I think this would be the best thing to do in this scenario. That doesn't mean that I could actually do that.
Yeah. Well, me, no, I'm perfect. We all know this. That's why we listen for over 400 episodes now. But anyway, yeah. And if you believe that. Anyway.
You believe anything.
That's right. How about you dive into your next story?
Okay, I'm certainly going to do that as soon as I put my password in my computer. Okay, here we go. So this is going to kind of dovetail with your last story. So, healthy distractions. Hi everyone. I'm having an issue with something I need to discuss deeper with one of my partners. I don't want to talk about it over the phone or via text because it warrants an in-person conversation, but I won't be seeing them for another 3 days at least. This particular subject is really eating at me, and I'm finding it difficult not to just start texting a bunch of nonsense. I need some healthy distractions. I'm at work, that's helping a little, but tonight I'll be alone, and I just know this feeling is going to eat at me. What are your go tos? What thought processes do you condition yourself with to keep you from being impulsive? This conversation can and should wait, but my brain won't shut up about it.
Well, obviously, we don't know what the specific is in this case, so we have to, kind of go along with some general advice here. Like, you do have to take into account what the issue is and make the best decision that you possibly can as to whether it's something that can be talked through via text message or a phone call or something like that, or if it's something that needs to be done in person, because text messaging has a lot of great benefits, but similar to writing stuff on, social media, words on a screen don't always convey the meaning that the person telling them really wants at times. And if we're talking about a very serious topic, then, blasting someone with a long text message, just something that could be misconstrued, could make things worse when, just having a simple conversation with that person could. So it's a matter of doing your best to kind of bite your tongue and wait for that right opportunity. Easier said than done, I know. But you have to take into consideration the issue at hand, because if it is something that does need to have that one-on-one in-person conversation, you don't want to make it worse with a poorly worded text, no matter how much ChatGPT may help.
Yeah, I agree. I think so why I was thinking it was related to the prior story is that, again, here's someone who's having a feeling and is choosing not to communicate that feeling because it doesn't seem to be like the right time, and then feeling resentment about it potentially, and is trying to redirect that energy into something else. So this is a choice that this person is making to try to soothe and let the emotion take its natural course. And usually that is eventually it will dissipate, that feeling that feels so strong in the moment. If you can just hold on for a while, you will feel differently about it. This is something I've heard a lot, and I think it's probably true if you are otherwise communicating when you need to.
Right.
If you're not always the one who's saying, I'm not going to talk about my feelings, I'm going to let them just pass by. And I think there were some really great suggestions and things that I have used, including journaling and writing out how I'm feeling and maybe what I would say to the other person or people that are involved. And that really helps me to isolate what it is that I'm feeling the feeling about and sort of write out all the other bullshit that's been, you know, everybody has things about their partner that are like boiling in the background, I think. And so you have to get through all of that in order to find out what's bothering me today that is beyond these, it annoys me when you X.
And that's, I think, one thing to worry about as well, because you don't want to you don't want to take so much time trying to find the right moment to think of the right words to say, because situations like that can sometimes, build up, and then you explode and say lots of things verbally that you end up regretting later. because you did not just say it. So depending on the issue as well, maybe diving into the deep end of the pool is the right thing to do, and just say it. So you can start that conversation. Maybe it would be something of, hey, I'm going to write this down in text form, but I want us to be able to have an in-person conversation at a later point as well. It is serious to me. Here it goes. And then go from there, and then have that expectation of having a follow-up in person, because there have been plenty of times in the past where I've let things build up, build up, build up, and then just explode with venom, and then you feel like shit afterwards. We're all human. We're all going to do that. We've all done that in some way, shape, or form, some worse than others, and that can get pretty wacky. Let's put it that way. But ideally, it's like, there's, on the one hand, it is noble to want to find that right time, to find the right words to say, but yeah, sometimes you could just be using that as a crutch to not say anything.
Right. I mean, I think it's situational, and it's we've always got to be asking ourselves the question: is it that I need this time to process, or is it that I'm trying to push down my feelings so as to not be a bother, or to not be the squeaky wheel, or to be afraid of rejection if you express what you need. So it can either be very empowering, I think, or it can be, a negative.
A crutch, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right. How about I dive into my next one?
Sounds good.
This one is called I'm Absolutely Crushed. It's another vent. My girlfriend and I have been dating for a while now, and everything has been great. We get along beautifully. I love her so much, and I'm friends with her husband. Everything has been a dream. I thought she was going to be a life partner. We've talked about a commitment ceremony someday and thrown around ideas of living together, or at least next to each other. Apparently, her husband is no longer comfortable with polyamory. She came over to talk to me about it, and basically it sounds like he has forced her to make a choice, and she has chosen him. They've been together for a lot longer than we have and are obviously married, but she has always made me feel like a very equal partner. I brought up my own insecurities about him being at a level that I cannot reach. She has assured me that there's ways we can go about getting me to feel like I'm at the same level. Now that he has changed his tune, I see that when it came down to it, I was the one that had to go. I guess I was never as equal as I thought. I'm just really hurt, and I don't know where to vent about this besides here. She's met all my friends. I even introduced her to my mom. Our relationship has been controversial to my family, but I told them all to back off about it because I love her and was so happy. She's in all my happiest memories. I was about to give up on dating before her, but I opened my heart up one more time and thought it was all worth it. I don't know what to do or how to feel now. I'm just devastated. Definitely something that happens in polyamory that you're not going to encounter in monogamous relationships, if everybody's following the rules in monogamy, of course.
Right. And this is something that happens in polyamory, and I think people refer to it as the veto, right? One of the partners has the right to say who the other partner can see. And that other partner is always gonna ultimately default to going back to that person.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's bad. I mean, imagine how it would feel now. I think it's pretty dumb. Well, maybe dumb's not. I think it's pretty naive to think that if someone's married, that there can be non-hierarchy. Like, that itself creates a hierarchy.
Yeah, because
the person is right. They could never have the same kind of relationship.
Yeah, I mean, as we've discussed, marriage is you're getting into essentially creating a business. The marriage is the business.
Right, exactly.
And as it stands in our country right now, when you get married, you are not allowed to get married again and again and again without divorcing somebody.
Right, because the corporation is made up of two people.
Yeah, just how God wanted. Anyway, this sucks. This sucks. This is one of the huge drawbacks that people can encounter in polyamory.
Yeah. So I guess where I was going with what I was saying
I got there.
is that people shouldn't believe like non-hierarchical polyamory is very hard to find. It's probably easier to find among young people who don't have family, they haven't started having kids yet. They haven't identified that one person that they want to unite with economically. And they don't have anything economically to unite, they're kids, they don't have money. And so it seems like it can all be equal. And I think it can in those circumstances. But as soon as you start having kids and as soon as you start getting married, it can't be like that anymore.
Yeah, the person who wrote this, like, learned a hard lesson, and that lesson is to, at the end of the day, they had to understand where they truly stood. That does not invalidate the feelings that the married person had for them at all. It doesn't invalidate the experiences that they had. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, that most of the stories that you will hear talking about this will involve the married person going back to their married partner and not leaving the married person. The flip side can happen.
Oh, sure.
But more often than not, you will probably find the married people going back to each other because that's the easier thing to do, I guess.
Yeah, and I think for some people, like the pre-existing relationship it can get complicated when you have feelings for somebody else, but you want to honor that pre-existing relationship. And so maybe your feelings have somewhat shifted, but your commitment hasn't shifted.
Yeah. So I feel sorry for the person who wrote this, but them's the breaks. I mean,
It's a hard lesson.
a hard lesson to learn, but again, like I said, it doesn't invalidate the experiences and the feelings that you had with that person. But yeah, to expect the married person to just drop everything and go with you, it can happen. Just don't bet the farm.
Again, it's that thing of you got to know what you need. You have to express that need. If it's incompatible with the reality of a situation, you've got to change that situation.
Exactly, and I think the next one you're going to read here, it kind of touches upon that. So how about you tell the next story?
Okay, so the next story is my mom slut shames me.
Oh no.
Well, I, 25 female, have been married to my partner, 29 male, for about 5 years. We have been practicing for that entire time, by which I think she means practicing some form of ethical non-monogamy. That entire time, and we are super happy about it. I've had a couple of boyfriends here and there, but I met this guy, 22 male, about 6 months ago, and I'm over the moon about him. I told my mom about him, and she has many opinions. As a traditional Latin mother, she calls me a cheater, un avion, a plane traveling from one man to another, and a chapeadora, a gold digger, someone who seeks financial benefits from a romantic or sexual relationship. She says this constantly. She makes lots of other jokes as well, and generally thinks polyamory is a bad idea. I've tried really hard to be open with my mom about my life and include her because she and my younger brother are the only family I have stateside. Any other family would understand much less than she already does. I guess I'm looking for advice. My mom genuinely thinks I'm a slut, and anytime she remembers I have two partners, she takes the time to look down upon me. Any advice would be great.
Oh boy. Um, I mean, we've talked on the show plenty of times, whether it's you and me, the Reverend Tracy and myself, and all that about the idea that, you must have your family in your life as a constant because they were there from you from the start is kind of bullshit. If people are ultimately bad people, then you shouldn't have them in their life, no matter if they're biologically related to you or not. Now, I'm not saying the mother in this particular case is necessarily bad. Making some assumptions here. They said that the mother in question was a Latin mother, so you have to assume that you don't have to assume. It's a good assumption to say that religion may be involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because religion does not exactly uh, smile upon polyamory and all that stuff, but and also society, the way it is, like, it sounds like the mother is making just comments out of her ass, basically, insulting her daughter's intelligence here. It's just like, basically, the woman who wrote this really should do some soul searching. She should really, because if being polyamory is her, if that is her life and whatnot, should she have someone that is in her life, that is there because of biological purposes, in this case her mother, should she constantly allow that person in her life to constantly ridicule her and bring her down? Like, I don't think so.
So, I mean, should we ever do that for anyone?
No,
Should we ever let someone abuse us because they've somehow earned that right by being our biological parent?
not at all. Not at all.
No.
I mean, I don't talk to my dad. I know plenty of people, like, I know the Reverend Tracy doesn't talk to her biological parents. I know plenty of people that don't, and it's more talked about, I guess, among younger people these days too, because it really was the boomer generation that did really bad at the whole parenting deal.
And not only did they do really bad at the whole parenting deal, I think I've observed a little bit of how they dealt with their parents getting older and that sort of reparenting your parents when parents get to the age where they need someone to take care of them and you're that person. What I've seen is resentment and an inability to really have communicated in your whole life with your parents, and then you're supposed to give to them like a parent would, and you can't at that point. It feels like you cannot at that point have boundaries with them
Yeah.
because you let it go for so long. They've always been able to treat you that way. They've always been able to have those expectations. So, a lot of the advice here for this person is about having boundaries. Once again, having boundaries, and the idea that boundaries are bridges, not fences. That is, we're not saying, my boundary is you cannot be close to me. The boundary is, if you're going to be close to me, here's what I need.
Yeah, because
And one of those things is to be respected.
yeah, because the person in question that wrote this is an adult. They can make their own choices, and I don't care if they sleep with like 5 different people every single day of the week. If they don't want their mother talking to them like this, they should not have to deal with that. I think the only time a parent should ever step in with an adult child was if the kid in question, like, if one of my kids, my kids are all adults now. If one of my kids said, "Oh, you know, sleep with whoever. I don't care about prophylactics. I don't care about proper safe sex and all that stuff." Then, as a parent, then at that point, yeah, you want to step in, but that's not what's happening here. The mother is insulting the woman's life. Because the woman in question, has made an agreement with her partner and her other partner to live the life the way they do. She's not breaking any rules. She's not cheating. Yeah, fuck that one.
Well, I mean, I think.
I think to your point, for what this, it sounds like some of the people are stating, like, yeah, that you don't want to say "fuck you, mom" and never see that person again. I'm not saying that should be step number one. Step number one should be the boundary of, "Mom, if you want me in your life, you're not going to talk to me like that." I think that is fair to say. And if the mother is a good mother, doesn't mean she can't continue to have that opinion, but that doesn't mean she needs to tell you, because again, we're talking at this point to adults. The person writing this is not 12 years old.
That's right. That's right. The thing to keep in mind is that you can't change anyone else's behavior. You cannot force someone to act in a certain way, even if the way you want them to act is the right way to act.
Yeah, if you are, like, for example, if you are an atheist and you have a family member that is super religious, you can't demand that they be an atheist. They have a right to be religious because they are their own person. They can do what they want in their life no matter how much you agree. But if that super Christian person is trying to make you change your lifestyle, you have the right to say, don't.
Right, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell someone who's religious not to be religious, just like they can't tell me I have to be religious,
Yeah.
just like you said. So I think, the idea is that if people don't change, or if they think they can't change in response to the expression of a need by someone who they are supposed to be in a loving relationship with, then I think it's fair for the person to express to that parent, you can't talk to me like this anymore, or I'm not going to stay around. That's the only choice, though. You can't force them to change. All you can do is absent yourself from that experience.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, too, like, because polyamory is, in terms of the mainstream conversation, just really bubbling up to the surface, a lot of times you have to educate people on what polyamory really is. And, if you set that boundary, and if the mother in question says fine, which doesn't mean she's still not going to think it, but she does not bring it up, in conversation, maybe over time she will see, oh yeah, my child is, my child is happy, my child is healthy, my child is not a bad person, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be the hope.
yeah. Oh, hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully.
yeah,
Well, how about I wrap things up?
yeah. Let's wrap things up.
Yeah, one more story here. It is hard when your partner has better game, more charm than you.
Mm.
Musings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 32 female, and I only have one partner right now, my nesting partner, 36 male. We've been together 4 years and have been poly the whole time. He has 2 other partners that he has been seeing for 2 years and goes on dates with new people regularly. I have had one other partner beside him in the last 5 years. We were together for 6 months, but that ended a year ago. Since then, I went on one date with an ex-girlfriend from years ago who wanted to get back together, but that's a bad idea and basically a dead end. I struggle so hard to get dates, especially because I'm mostly interested in women and am seeking women and non-binary people. I'm really not good with the apps. It is wearing on my self-esteem and bringing up feelings of jealousy, envy of my partner to the point where I cry when he has another date over. I don't like being this way at all. Normally, I'm not jealous. I've been practicing polyamory for 8 years. I'm pretty seasoned at this point. I don't know what the point of this post is. I guess I'm just looking for someone to commiserate. ETA is, it probably doesn't help that I went on a date with my ex-girlfriend and hooked up a few times, and that was a bad idea and a dead end. It kind of crushed me. Whenever I get my heart broken, I end up finding myself jealous of my partner when in normal circumstances I am not jealous. That is something that can happen in polyamorous relationships, folks. There will be some people that will have a great batting average and, are out on the town every night with someone, not necessarily someone new every night, but just someone, you know what I mean? And then there are people that will be in like a relationship with like one person, want to date other people, but just strikeout after strikeout after strikeout after strikeout, and in a lot of ways that can affect your mental health. It can make you feel less than, but I think the important thing for me, I guess, what I've been learning the past couple of years, because like right now I've been on a strikeout streak myself, and I think ultimately it's not trying to find something just to say you have another relationship so you can be poly. No one's going to take away your poly card if, you have a long strikeout session, folks. As we discussed.
Or if you decide not to date for a long time.
Exactly, that too, because I mean, as we've mentioned, there are people that are in committed monogamous relationships who still identify as poly. If you are poly, you are poly. Ultimately, you don't want to be so desperate that you look for something and ultimately settle. Like if you have bad luck, that sucks. It really does. And if it's getting to the point where it's affecting your self-esteem, maybe bringing it up to the partner wouldn't be a bad thing, but that's another thing, I guess, too, to where you want to be able to talk about that in a right way so you can say that this is just how I am feeling right now, has nothing to do with you, blah, blah, blah. That way, you can have some support, because that's the beauty of polyamory, too. If someone is having a long strikeout session, at the very least, you do have someone you can commiserate with and have a hug with, or something more. Maybe some of that butt stuff we talked about earlier. But yeah, just it's tough. It can be tough, and if you do want somebody in your life, that's great. But the danger I kind of see in this post is the whole notion of being so desperate to have someone in your life that you will just find the first person that says yes, let's go out, and that could ultimately lead to problems. It's like you want. To me, I guess I've discovered the importance of dating with purpose. And if that means you don't date for a while, you don't date for a while.
Mm-hmm. And what do you mean by that, dating with purpose?
Not settling, not just going out on a date just to say you've gone on a date, because I've been guilty of that in the past, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that, but like I'm at a point right now to where if I am going to be in a potential romantic relationship with somebody, like I yeah, I guess that's one like for the past couple of years, like I've, on occasion will like take a week to be on a particular dating app, and then nothing happens, and then I feel stupid, and then delete the app and just go off again. And for me, I guess if and or when I date again, it's not just going to be like, hey, this is the one random person who swiped right and said, cool, let's go for a coffee. It's about finding out more about that person to see if it's the right thing to do. And, to the point to where, yeah, you're not having that desperation to, I must have, another romantic partner in my life. I'll take the first one that comes my way, because that's not fair to the other person either. If you're just, latching on to the other person, they could be falling madly in love with you. But if your whole mindset of dating them is just, I just want to date somebody to say I'm dating somebody, to have that extra connection, that's not really fair.
Yeah, I mean, again, we come back to communication and being honest with people and knowing what that honesty is, knowing what your truth is so that you can express it.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, for the person that wrote this, I think the first step should be to talk to their partner, because if they talk openly and honestly to their partner and not, and I don't see how they would, but, not turning it into a, how dare you have better skills than me, type of deal, but just say, hey, it sucks seeing you have such a string of luck and me not. It's not your fault. It's not my fault, but I just, want a hug,
Yeah, I mean, I think, identifying what you need in the moment and being able to communicate that is going to be key for everything.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think one thing we've learned throughout this experience in this episode here is that polyamorous relationships come with their own struggles.
Hmm.
For all the good it can bring you, and it has brought me a lot of good in my life. It can also bring a lot of bad, and we're all human. We're all going to have the good times and the bad times with the people that we deal with. It's more about understanding the bigger picture, I guess, and, just kind of doing your best to be the best person that you can be, not only for yourself, but the other people that you do take into your life.
Yeah, I guess, and then the last thing I would say is that you have to accept yourself
Of course.
and love yourself.
Yeah.
And, it's okay. it's normal to feel FOMO or envy if somebody else is having a better time than you and doing things you want to do but are not able to do for whatever reason. There's no reason to beat yourself up for having those kinds of feelings. They're very natural feelings.
It's part of the human experience, and think about it like this too. I mean, there are times in relationships where theoretically things could flip. The person that wrote this, the woman that wrote this, could suddenly go on a great dating streak, and her partner could just be sitting at home while the other person dates for a while. That's just how life can work sometimes.
Yep.
I mean, it does sound like the woman in question does have very specific things she's looking for in a potential partner, so maybe that limits the amount of available people, and that's something to take into account too,
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I think that's it.
All right. Yeah, we'll definitely have to tackle this subject again at a later time. That is the beauty of taking on a topic that you find on Reddit, much like the Am I the Asshole stories. You can always revisit because there's new stories to tell.
That's right. The human experience just keeps happening all around us.
Yes, and we'll be able to give you our advice because we have doctorates in relationships. Yeah. From the Hollywood Upstairs Medical College.
I mean, I've been in relationships for what? A long time. A long time at this point. 30-something years.
Yeah.
35 years. It's a long time.
When's it going to stop? No, I'm kidding. But that's the thing. Like, the older you get, the more you do learn. But that doesn't mean that the older you get, the more perfect your life will be, because the older you get, the more different types of problems will come your way. But the beauty of being able to not only do what these people did on Reddit in terms of putting their stories out there, having the courage to do that, it's great being able, with my older age, to be able to give some words of wisdom to some people along the way. And if they listen, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything you want to say to our friends at home before we wrap things up?
I don't think so.
All right. So for the hot weather being what it is, each Monday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long. Turn on the air conditioner.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.